Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC in Christ Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications. We are at Creekside right now, and we're having a great time. It's a week celebration, basically started this weekend, and I have an awesome guest with me right now. And she and I are friends on Facebook. Her name is Annette Sanders, but I wanted to read what she has on her card. First of all, if you need to get in contact with her about scheduling, you need to call her at area code 614-905-0433. Now, I wanted to mention you can find us on Charter Communications. That's channel 182 in North Alabama. You can also find us on Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Annette, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well,
Excited.
we're tickled to have you. So tell us a little bit about your career in music.
I got started about 20 some years ago. I sang with an all-female quartet, and we traveled our tri-state area, which is Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky, and did some, our specialty, we did these like a cappella songs and things like that.
Oh, I love a cappella.
But then I came down with the illness of depression and anxiety and started having panic attacks and had to walk away from the ministry because of that illness. And then I've sang in church most of my life, just little songs here and there. But just this year I felt the Lord starting to call me into a ministry. From my healing, I was healed of depression and anxiety 7 years ago. It will be in November.
Awesome.
And complete change in my life. And I then felt him. I'm a songwriter as well, so as I wrote songs trying to get gospel groups to, I'd like to hear this gospel group hear the song and sing it, or this one. But as we wrote this song, I co-wrote a song called My Purpose is Praise, and it's kind of my theme in my ministry. As I wrote that song, God spoke to me and said, this song you will sing and release it as a debut, as a single, as an artist. And took me aback, but so then I released that song, My Purpose is Praise, and I feel like now the Lord's opening doors to be like at places like here at Creekside and to minister and just to witness to what He did in my life. And so that's kind of how my career got started.
Well, I'm really glad. So I'm so glad to meet you. And, we air your music on our radio station. And by the way, you can find her music, icradio.media. Just remember, IC stands for In Christ Radio.media. In other ways, you can find her as well. You're going to be able to find her on television, too. So this will be replaying several times on Abundant TV. And thanks to Rob Patz for making this happen. We appreciate you, Rob. Absolutely. You've got quite the story, and, a lot of folks can relate to your story about depression.
Yeah, I see a lot of people struggling as I go out and minister, and they come up to me and say, I know I've been there, or I'm there right now. And I said, can I pray for you? Because I know the darkness. And if you have not walked through that, thank the Lord that you haven't, if you haven't. But if you haven't, it's hard to kind of understand what it's like. But in this life, I think everybody deals with a mild depression, but there is a disease that's called depression, and it's more debilitating, and that's what I ended up was diagnosed with. And days and days with just laying on the couch. My house was going crazy, my kids were but anyways, yes, it's a ministry to people and all I want to say is there's hope, because in that point in my life, I didn't feel any hope at all. And just somebody to say, I understand, and there's hope. And that's what the Lord leads me to do.
Well, do you feel it's the world we're in? Because it's just nothing but bad news all the time. We just don't have the television on unless we're watching Andy Griffith reruns or we're watching Abundant TV. And that seems to be the only good source for news anymore. What do you say to folks? We've got an election coming up. What do you say about folks who are just inundated? They're watching television. They're watching the news channels all the time. Can that play into depression?
I believe so. And I believe that the enemy does use that to I used to teach youth, and I would tell the kids, it's garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you put
That's
in
true.
is going to come out. And like watching horror movies, I'm sorry if you love them, but if you watch horror movies,
I'll have nightmares like that.
if you fill yourself with that fear is going to come out.
Uh-huh.
And I believe that with the negative, with the news, and if you fill yourself with all that, it's going to weigh you down in your spirit.
Mhm.
And I choose to focus on other things like praise and worship music and good preaching and good TV shows, and I choose to focus on those things. And if I could tell people, turn that off, turn that TV off.
I mean, what good is it doing you anyway? And I know how I'm going to vote. I don't have to sit and listen to it 24/7. And that was bad news. I remember back in the day, news only came on at night. Or maybe an early morning or an afternoon kind of a news, but it's on 24/7, on and it's always the same old stuff anyway. I mean, it just totally rerun all day long with that.
And I think a lot of times they're trying to make news entertaining. Like,
it's not.
For some people,
And
like
I'm in the business, and I got to tell you, it's not entertaining.
some people like that drama.
Yeah.
I just don't feed on that drama.
I think that you just reached another key right there. Drama. That's people get addicted to soap operas.
Yes.
I'm addicted to Andy Griffith. but you're absolutely right. Now, another thing I've noticed about folks who have went through some kind of depression is they're usually artsy. They've learned to use that side of the brain to make some good and that's what you've got. You have art. You want to show? Let's show
This
folks.
I didn't do these pictures.
Mhm.
My son, who he struggles with depression like I do, or I did, but the Lord healed me. But I explained to him what I felt like I'd like him to draw for me. And this picture here is a picture of the brain. And for 20 some years, this is how I felt like I struggled. Every time I wanted to do something for the Lord, or if I wanted to, let me see so you can see it, I felt like I was hindered. This is a hindrance, this illness. And then I explained to him, and it's a dark picture because that was dark places in my life.
Let me see that. Okay, I see chains where you're chained.
Yes.
Right here. Yeah, and I can see how your brain could look like this with depression. I really can. And I mean, this is just a way to get. This is an awesome, folks. This is awesome. I mean, this is showing you what really happens. So he paints these and he sells these. Is that right?
Well, no, that's an original, and he hasn't done
He
any other.
needs to do that. That's a form of ministry right there.
Yeah. Well, when he comes to Jesus, I pray for my son. When he comes to Jesus, I'm
I
sure
like your
that.
attitude when he comes to Jesus.
Yes, I know. When he comes to Jesus, the Lord will use that talent. But this was what I looked like for 20 some years and struggled in that. But I'm so glad to be able to share the beautiful picture of what the Lord can do, Donna.
Look at that, all cleared. And this is another thing I think that also can bring on depression, and this is where we think we want things to work our way. And I've got to say this, Annette, anytime I've ever made plans and I planned things my way, it never turned out. I usually wound up making a mess, thus cluttering up my brain. Do you think that has anything to do with it? We're not following God's guidance.
Well, God has a plan for all of our lives. And, I tried to rush God's plan. In my heart, I wanted to sing. I knew that I should sing. And I tried to rush that. But God had a timing. And by, trying to rush that, I did make things complicated and hard. But waiting on God's timing and finally putting my life, just saying, Lord, whatever you want with my life. If you don't want me to sing, if you don't want me to tell, well, I'm sure he wants me to tell others, but whatever you want, I want that in my life. And when you let go and let God have his way, he has a plan.
Oh, but it's so hard to let go sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But you think, well, what's going to happen if I just let go? Am I going to fall off the cliff? What do you say about that?
Oh, there's a little saying that my mother gave me a card. My husband and I were in missionary work, and we were in Africa, in Uganda, Africa.
We were there.
Oh,
We went
really?
to South Uganda.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
they were fighting in North Uganda at the time, so we took
Yeah.
the trip to South
We
Uganda.
lived in Kampala for about 8 months.
We were there.
And it's beautiful,
It
isn't
is a beautiful place, and the people are beautiful.
Yeah.
English and Swahili.
Yes, we learned Lugandan while we were there.
Oh.
That language. Oh,
Uh-huh.
please don't ask me to speak it because I can't remember.
I was about to ask.
I said all I can say is Wasuse Otieno Niebo, which means how have you spent the night, madam? So
Oh.
I've lost my. I didn't learn.
Well, that was pretty good, man. But it's a beautiful language.
Yeah, it is. But we were there for, and I lost my train of thought where we were talking about before that. Why I was saying we were in Uganda.
I had to interrupt her and mention Uganda. But it is a beautiful place. I wanted to say this, though, while you're thinking about it. In Uganda, we were there. And so I got to go on the trip because I cook. And the guys, it was a construction trip, and I love to cook, so they love my biscuits, so I got to go.
Oh.
So that's the biscuits got me there. But when you go out into the village and hand out flyers or leaflets, they didn't throw them and toss them in the trash or on the ground or anything. They would huddle around and look at them and read them.
Yeah,
They were hungry.
yeah.
What are your thoughts about missionaries from Africa bringing missionaries here? Are we
Yes,
about ready for that?
I think we are, and that their worship services were unbelievable. Just to see somebody that hardly had anything, and yet they had the joy of the Lord in their hearts, and actually their praise would wear me out. We would go kind of a little bit into the service, so we could just get our American style praise. But it was a wonderful experience. It was there though that my depression took its forefront, and
What do you
after
think?
culture shock for one thing.
Right.
Culture shock, you don't know it unless you've experienced
Right.
that. Culture shock, and then it just brought forward all the things in my past that I had dealt with, and it was because of the depression that I did have to come home, because I struggled with suicidal thoughts, and so because of that I had to come home and from that ministry, and then there you go, I've dealt with failure. I feel like I failed in that ministry, but my children, they were in high school, and they love it. They said it was the best experience they ever experienced in their lives, and my son tells everybody that he grew up in Africa, though we were only there 8 months, but it was an experience.
A lot of growing up to do there.
Yeah, it is an experience that they'll never forget. And while I was there, I was blessed. God allowed me to teach there at the international school there. I taught Bible for the high school students. So I didn't just teach Africans, I taught students from all different countries. And it was a blessing.
Well, what are your thoughts about, it was a terrible thing to go through, depression. So what are your thoughts about God wanted you to go through that so you could teach others about depression and help them? Does that sound about right?
Yes, there's a song that the Perrys used to sing called "The Potter Knows the Clay," and that song has really talked to me. And it talks about how He puts us on the wheel, and we have. There's a beautiful design, but it'll take some fire and time. And that time of fire was where God was molding me and making me, and then He was refining me. And I'm not perfect, and I've still got a lot more fire
Well,
maybe to go through. A lot more fire probably to go through, but because of that, He's already starting a beautiful design that will give Him glory. It's all about Him, and it's for His glory. Whatever I do, and I feel Him calling me to jump out there and let people see me, and that's hard. But He's saying, get yourself out there, because you're my masterpiece, and you are the one that's going to bring me glory. And that's what I'm here for. that's why I came here. That's why I'm out there on the road.
I'm really glad you came here. I really am, and it's really good to meet you. We still have a few minutes. I told you time would fly.
It has.
Because you've got a beautiful, beautiful story. So now you also write music.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's talk about some of your music you have written.
Okay. I years ago I just started making little songs up. Me and my brother used to make these little parodies to all my country songs my dad would listen to. Little I won't go there because some of them aren't they're kids make up silly songs. But
Some
then-
adults do too. We hear it on MTV.
and I still do. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can see a couple parodies that I've done. If you're like silly songs like
But it's
that.
okay to laugh.
Yeah.
That's part of the songs.
So I still do those sometimes just for fun. But I started writing songs, and God actually put me in the pathway. I met a lady on Facebook that lives not too far from me in Charleston, and we started co-writing together. She actually this year, her name's Debbie Hara, she won the Singing News songwriting thing this year. And we've written some songs together. Her and another lady, the friend that I met from Circleville, Ohio, that has songs. And then I've written several different songs by myself. The songs that I sang last night, one of them was written, the first one was written with a lady from Louisiana. Facebook and all those communities really put people together. And you can write songs together and be clear across the world from each other.
Yeah, technology has made that happen. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and so I met this lady, Alicia Stevens, and we wrote My Purpose is Praise. And there's a big story about My Purpose is Praise, and I know we're out of time. But
No, actually, we've got plenty of time.
oh, you want to hear the story
Yes,
about
I
how
want to
that?
hear that story.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons I got you, Lou.
My Purpose is Praise came about. Me and my husband went back to our home church. We hadn't been there for a while. They'd got a new pastor. And the pastor got up to preach. His name is Ben Polly. And he's a younger fellow, a lot younger than us. But as he got up to preach, he was talking about this God that created everything and how he holds everything in place. And everything was created to give him praise. And he talked about the human body and this protein in the human body called laminin. And it's actually, if you look under a microscope, it's cross-shaped. I don't know if you've seen it.
No,
It's
I
called laminin.
haven't.
Laminin. And
How do
they
you spell that so we can all look at it? Never mind.
Laminin, something like that.
You can Google it. I'm sure you can
Laminin.
find it.
And it's cross-shaped. And there's over 500,000 of those cross-shaped proteins called laminin. They're called cruciforms, and they hold the human body together. But anyway, so after
Now, what does science say about that?
I don't really know.
We don't care, do we?
I don't. I
It
just think
works.
it's the wonder of God putting His signature on our
Uh-huh.
human bodies, don't
Right.
you? But anyways, after he preached that message, I went home and I wrote that chorus. I sat down to my piano and it just all come out. My purpose is praise to the God who holds the whole world in its place. And that chorus just poured out, and I got online and in my writing worship community, and I sang that chorus. And then Alicia contacted me, said, "Hey, I love that." I said, her or I one said, "Let's put verses to it."
Mhm.
And that's how it was
It's
born.
beautiful. Can you sing some of it for us?
Oh.
Or would you rather have a microphone?
No. I can try. My purpose is praise to the God who holds the whole world in its place. You know all my ways, but you love me and you keep me in your grace. When I question why I'm here, my purpose is your praise.
You know what? There are people who sing and sing really well. Then there are people who sing and put emotion to it. You got it.
It's the Spirit of God. It's not me. Yeah.
It is. I mean, it makes a huge difference in your message that you're portraying out there for everybody.
Well, I just want them to know that whatever the Lord has gave me, He can give that to them. He can give that to them if they'll just call on Him and believe.
And one word, if one word put everything together, and I know we're all still growing. You're never going to reach the pinnacle ever until you go on. But if you, one word, what would be your catchphrase? What would be your catchword?
Well, in 2022, I got a word. You know how you get New Year's words, and I used to laugh at that and think, oh, what is that about? Well, 2022, before that started, the Lord spoke to me and said, magnify. And so I looked up the definition. You know, magnify. You just look under a microscope or something, or make something appear larger. And my word for this year was magnify. And all this started from, I was not doing anything. I was writing songs, but I was not singing and going to churches, and I was not coming to big conventions and singing before 2022 started. I started 2022 with the word magnify, and I thought, Lord, I will magnify you whatever way you want me to. And so 2022, so I guess my one word would be magnify God and what He has done in your life. That's what He put us here for, to praise Him so other people can see.
Yeah, and other people you're going through depression, you're going through anything.
You
know, I mean, people are still going through the after effects of COVID. I think that's going to be around a little while, and we need to see that there is hope.
Yes.
Abounding for that. Absolutely. You know, we still got a little time. I wanted to talk about some of your other songs that you have written as well.
Okay.
And how can we find your music?
Well, I'm still trying to get it out there into the mainstream. I have a YouTube channel it's rough. Now, don't expect anything professional. It's called My Unchained Melody by Annette Sanders. That's my YouTube channel. There are some songs there that I have written. One called He Can. Now, He Can is written because of my son and watching him deal with his depression.
That's tough for a mom, right?
Yeah. And the second verse is written because of my father-in-law. He broke his hip, and I watched him suffer through a long chronic illness of that. And that song says, I wish if I could, I would calm the storm I seen behind your eyes. And it talks about how if I could do this, I would do this for you, but I can't. But I'm glad I know the one who can. And then it says, He can walk on water. He can calm troubled sea. And it goes on and it says, now I don't feel so helpless when I place you in His hands, because He's the one who can. So that's one of the songs I wrote. And that I solely wrote that because talking about, it came from emotion. It's a deep emotional song. And then I wrote another song called Don't Worry About the Stone. It's going to be sung by a group called the Liberty Bells from Missouri. They're going to put it on their CD. So I'm finally having,
exciting.
Yeah, I'm finally having a song cut, as they call it. And it's called Don't Worry About the Stone. And my mother-in-law was preaching a message about Mary and Martha going to the tomb, and they were talking, well, how are we going to move the stone? And when they got there, it was already took care of. So the message in the song is, don't worry about things that you can't deal with, because He's went ahead. He's taken care of those things. And I've seen it time and again in my life.
We waste a lot of shoe leather worrying about stuff that's never even going to happen. I mean, I'm really guilty of doing that. You think of all the scenarios, and you're taught that in the business world. I've worked in the corporate world a long time, and they teach you, be prepared for the bad stuff that are going to, and then all that does, to me, is creates worry.
Yeah.
Which creates depression.
Yes, all those things pile up together, and it does. But then I have some songs that I've co-written with those ladies, like I mentioned. And then the one I sang last night is my newest. It's called Freedom Song, and that is just a testimony of what God has done. It talks about Miriam at the Red Sea and how she must have felt when she saw that water go over those enemies and knew that she was free. And so the second verse is about, I stood at my own Red Sea and I wondered what to do, but I've watched God part the waves and make a pathway through. And I know what it's like to sing when you have been set free. And it was my personal song. freedom sounds like this: standing on the shores of deliverance. It's a good thing, and it's for everybody that has been delivered from something. You know what it's like to be free. Listen, you'll hear freedom song because freedom sounds like this.
And there's something about the word freedom too that we're all, everybody. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on politically. There's the word freedom is a grand word. That's just another one of my words. Because you feel bound with depression or whatever it is that you feel bound by. I mean, that just, it rules your world, and it shouldn't.
Yeah, the night that I was healed, the preacher preached on hindrances. And I have been a Christian since I was 13 years old and been in ministries, many different ministries. Like I said, the mission field and a radio ministry for so many years, and just teaching and preaching and all these ministries that I was involved in. But the depression always hindered. It hindered. Like, it caused me to come home from the mission field.
Mm-hmm.
And that night he preached on hindrances, and I said, Lord, every time I've tried to do anything for you, there's been hindrances.
Mm-hmm. That means you're doing the right thing, though.
And he said, if you come forward tonight and be prayed for, I will heal you of that. And it was so plain that I had no doubt. And there was a big change. People around me that saw me after that said, something's different. I said, because I'm free, and there's nothing else to explain it. I'm free. And do I have sad days and depressing times? Yes, I do. I still do. But that debilitating, it's gone. And I'm free of that. Praise Jesus.
And you can teach other people.
Yeah.
Because there really is, because there's nothing like feeling you're inside a pit and there's no stairs, there's no steps, there's no nothing, and you can't get out of that pit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of folks struggle through depression. And I've seen people then I keep throwing up the corporate world, do what you need to do. But I just felt myself going a downward spiral because they were asking me to believe things that were beyond what I believe is Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't do it
anymore.
Sometimes you just kind of have to step out and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Okay, there's less than 2 minutes left in this segment. It flew by.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really, really glad to meet you. Absolutely. I'm going to give your telephone number, and you've got email as well. The telephone number is area code 614-905-0433. Now, you're on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of folks. How can they find you on Facebook?
It's just Annette Sanders. The ending part is like 526, I think, is the number of it.
But you can just type in Annette Sanders and you'll be able to pull her up as well. There may be more Annette Sanders than one who's a singer. And Unchained Melody, this is your email address. I'll go ahead and mention that. It's Unchained Melody, and that's 111815 @gmail.com as well.
That 11815 was the date of my healing. November the 18th. 2015.
That's very significant. And whatever you're going through, listen to this over and over again. You'll get a great message out of this from Annette. Annette, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. We're going to do this more often, okay? With technology, do you ever Zoom?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. When COVID hit, I had never heard what Zoom was. And a friend of mine in television said, you need to start Zooming. And I went, what's that? Now I live by Zoom. I love it. Thank you so much for watching Afternoon Drive Home. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed the interview. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications. You can also find us on Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You take care. More awesome guests coming up very soon.